I've got Ken Spencer on the line. Ken, can you hear me?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay. Perfect. Wanted to get in touch with all of my clients and discuss benefit compliance and ERISA solutions. There's been, as I have communicated with all of you over the past few months, I've attended a webinar and a couple of seminars discussing benefit compliance and just compliance issues as a whole that companies need to be aware of. Every business, whether they have one employee or thousands of employees, now fall under Obamacare and the guidelines and whatnot that are part of benefit compliance. Some of these compliance issues are involved with health insurance and others are not. So that encompasses every business out there that needs to make sure that they're covered and they've got the issues covered as far as compliance goes. I met Ken a couple of years ago at a seminar, actually, and we had a conversation and talked quite a bit about what he does. And I think after having that conversation and then meeting him in his office and going through in detail what he has to offer, I felt it valuable that I pass this information along, and we'll talk about some of his benefits and what he has to offer. But let me just kind of explain, Ken, if you don't mind, a little bit about Ken and his experience. He's been in the business, professional compliance and human resource management for over 25 years. And he's been working with manufacturing, software development, banking, and consulting. In 2004, he started ERISA Solutions, and in 2012, he's been providing extensive compliance, ERISA, and HR solutions for clients across the country. He's got compliance, leadership, HR courses that he's taught for 8 years at Westminster College. He's also taught employment law for the University of Phoenix. He's earned a master's degree in human resource management from the University of Utah. He also holds an undergraduate degree in marketing and finance. He's also a certified in change management techniques, and he's a certified senior professional in human resources. So Ken is very well qualified in what he does, and for the next 45 minutes to an hour, I'm going to turn the time over to him and go through a PowerPoint and explain the nuances that we're dealing with as far as Obamacare and as far as all the compliance issues that we're dealing with right now. So, Ken, if you're okay with that, I'm going to turn the time over to you.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate the introduction. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We're going to go through, we'll talk about some main problems that you're facing right now. We'll talk about some of the things that you need to do to get ready to pass ERISA audits, and I'll explain a little bit more about that as well. Now, for sake of our time today, I probably won't go into a lot on Obamacare, but I suffice it to say anyone who has 50 or more employees, you need to be ready to take care of the employer reporting requirements. So that's something you're going to be up to speed on. We just wrote an article 2 months ago on what you need to do on that. So in fact, I'll get that in your hands, Mark, so anyone who has 50 or more. That's one of the key focus things right now is you need to do some things now to be ready for to complete that 1095C employer reporting requirements in starting in 2016. You have to do that in January of 2016. So, but other than that, I'd like to focus. I'm going to talk about there's 4 main issues and challenges that you're being faced with right now that you need to make sure you're up to speed on because they're auditing and they're checking on these things. The first thing is there are indeed, the Department of Labor has hired additional auditors, and there's a big push for the auditors to go out and meet with all organizations. We're hearing rumors that it's all organizations by 2018. Now, I think that's a pretty lofty goal for the Department of Labor to think they're going to get with all companies by that time frame, but nonetheless, that's, you hear some things that it's hard to say if it's a rumor or exact. We did get that statement from a Department of Labor auditor who was auditing one of the 40-person group here in Salt Lake City, and and the broker called and said, why are you auditing this group? And that was their statement. They said, we didn't narrow them out. We've been asked to audit everyone by 2018. Now, as Mark mentioned, it doesn't matter the size of the group. You have a number of things that you have to be compliant with. One of the things is ERISA. And so we've had groups. We had a group a few months ago, 15-person company that was audited. So we all have to take the steps to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row, our I's dotted and T's crossed, so that you're ready, because it may happen next week or it may happen 3 years from now. But sooner or later, you're going to need to be accountable for having these things in place. Well, the next problem that you're faced with is just by virtue of offering benefits, medical insurance benefits, there's a number of notices that you have to get out. Everything from COBRA, CHIP, mental health and parity, newborns, women's health and cancer, patient protection. There's a HIPAA notice. If you offer a wellness plan, there's a wellness plan notice. If you offer if your medical plan is grandfathered, those are few and far between now. I don't know if there's any left out there. There's a few, but there is a special notice that goes out if you have that. And then there's a Medicare Part D notice that's due. And that one's always due by November 15th, actually October 15th of each year. And then there's the health exchange notice. That was due back in October of 2013. Now that was supposed to go out to everyone at that time, but it's still supposed to go to new hires now. But that goes to all employees, not just participants in the plan. These other notices that I just mentioned go to participants in the plan. Now there's also what's referred to as a summary plan description or a summary plan description wrap document. We'll explain more about that. In essence, what that is it provides the participants in the plan with their rights and details about their benefits and services, everything that goes with for each of their benefit plans, medical, dental, life, disability. Each one, ERISA says you have to have a summary plan description for. And we'll talk more about that as well. There's what's called a summary of material modification. Anytime you have a change with your benefit plan that's considered material, then you have to communicate that change. So an example of a material modification would be something where you've reduced benefits by a certain amount. Maybe you change the prescription drug plan, or you change deductibles up or down, or some major coverage thing changed, or you change the contributions. Those would all be considered material. So when you have something that's a benefit change that's material, that has to be communicated. ERISA and the Department of Labor, they want it done through what's a process called a summary of material modification, where basically you're communicating a summary of what's changed and when did it occur and so on. And I'll show you, we'll talk briefly more about that as well. The last one on here is the summary of benefits and coverage. I think most of you are familiar with that one. That's the special notice that's been coming out now. We get that one from the insurance providers. We have to get that out to all participants in the plan. And that's been going on now for several years. It's my perception that most employers are pretty good at COBRA, and they're pretty good at the summary of benefits and coverage. It's the others in between here where we need to work on and making sure that we know which ones apply, and you're getting the right notice out and getting them out to participants in the plan. All right, so the next problem we have here is, in fact, I've got my problems out of order here. We'll go backwards. Okay, so problem 3 is there's just a constant changing employment environment that's out there with all the laws changing. Almost every time we turn around, it seems like there's something else going on with the Affordable Care Act. And then other laws are changing regularly as well, like the Fair Labor Standards Act, Family Medical Leave Act. I mean, it just seems like there's something constantly going on, and it becomes a real challenge as employers to keep up on what do I need to do now? What are my actions? And so it's hard to be compliant if we don't know what's going on. So, and a lot of you probably have a lot of resources and ways that you're keeping current on those sort of things. The last problem that I'll address here, and then we're going to go into details on how you can solve some of these things and some of the requirements within here. The the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, most commonly known as HIPAA, there's certain requirements with that. When it first came out, it was more of just the portability of someone being able to take their have coverage from one plan to another to protect them from gaps between plans. It's now been expanded extensively and more of a focus on privacy and security of what's called protected health information, or PHI. And employers are, although if all you do is offer if you're not like a doctor's office or an office that deals with confidential medical records and such, the only thing that pretty much complies, where you comply with HIPAA, is dealing with, by the virtue of your offering a medical insurance plan. So because you offer a medical insurance plan, then you have certain responsibilities in how you manage that data, that information. So for example, you may need to have business associate agreements with anyone who handles PHI, protected health information, outside of your office. So you may have an agreement like that maybe with someone like Mark, that or other third-party administrators who have access to your employees' confidential information. And so you're required then to have a business associate a business agreement with them, so that they agree to follow the HIPAA security provisions in how they're transferring and handling that data. There's some other things that you need to take care in terms of how you're securing the data physically, how you're securing it in your files, and how you're securing it in any sort of electronic systems, where your computer access or whatever information is there, that you have safeguards. Or if you're transmitting information, say via an email or whatever, that you are securing that data somehow password protected or encrypted. But we'll go into more details on that here in just a moment as well. All right, so ERISA stands for Employee Retirement Income Security Act. Originally, when this was formed, it came out many years ago, and it was primarily there for governing and protecting of retirement plans. And that was, there's a lot of abuse that went on many years ago, where someone thought they had a retirement plan there, and then all of a sudden the company would use the funds to go buy new equipment or something, and then they'd go under, and then someone didn't have the retirement plan that was there. So ERISA came out to protect employees, and they've expanded that protection now to where it includes all health and welfare benefit plans. So health and welfare benefit plan now would include things like medical, dental, life, disability, HRA, HSA, all of those kinds of programs now fall under the protection of ERISA. And the Employee Benefit Security Administration, EBSA, they're the division within the Department of Labor that administers these ERISA, and they're the ones that are conducting the audits. All right, so who's covered by ERISA? Which benefits are covered, and who's responsible for compliance? Well, the only ones, so everyone who offers group benefit plans are covered by ERISA, unless you're government, and that would include public schools who are funded by government, and that would include churches or Indian nations. So other than that, everyone else is covered by ERISA and the things that we're talking about here today. Which benefits are covered? That includes all those that I just mentioned. Now the retirement plans are covered by ERISA, medical insurance, dental, life, disability, HRA, HSA. In fact, I'll show you a more comprehensive list when we go into the system here in a moment. Who's responsible for compliance? Sometimes this is a common misunderstanding, is some folks may think that it's the insurance providers, or may think that it's the insurance broker's responsibility. And in actuality, it does stop back with the employer. So each employer is responsible to be covered by, or to make sure they're following all the requirements and provisions of ERISA. Now the insurance provider and your broker may offer assistance and solutions to help you, which is what Mark's doing here today. But ultimately, you're the one that has to make sure that these things are happening. All right, let's talk about the audit for a moment. There's a number of things that's going on inside of, that they look for in the audit. I'm going to go through it. Now, we have an actual audit letter that I'm happy to share with anyone if you drop me a note. I'll have my email at the end here. And by the way, if you have questions as we go, please feel free. There's a way you can see within the system here that you can type over your question, and then we'll stop and address your question as we go. Some of the things that they look for in terms of documents. So there's a number of documents that they want to look at and review. They want to look at your plan documents or trust agreements, summary plan descriptions, or SPDs or summary plan description wrap documents. And we'll talk more about both of those later. There's also the summary of material modification, which we already briefly described. They want the benefits description booklets, certificates of coverage, and any other documents that you're giving out to participants that you're communicating, so that would include brochures and rates and, that kind of information, whatever you're sharing with participants. They look for and ask for information dealing with plan administration. They want to look at the documents that identify who the trustees are, board members, plan sponsors, if the fidelity bond applies, if there's a stop-loss insurance policies, invoices, proposals, letters of agreement, all of this information, all correspondence related to the plan's health benefits, complaints, claims, payments, processing, all of this kind of information they look for. Even minutes of board of directors, plan committees or meetings that where they've discussed things about benefits, participant enrollment packets, participant records. And this is why it's a good reminder for you if someone's waiving coverage that we make sure that we get those waiver forms as well, because they look for all of that information. They want to make sure everyone their rights have been met, that they've been communicated to them the right to join a plan, and that if they've waived or not waived that right. History of premium payments, benefit distribution logs, plan's chart of accounts, large claim reports. A lot of this stuff you may not have, and so sometimes they're asking for information that quite often we have to go back to the insurance provider to get. And then even want information on the medical loss ratio rebates as well. Some of the other documents that they'll review is Form 5500 and any attachments, including the financial statements. Now, this only applies if you have 100 or more participants in the given benefit plan. So I may have 150 on my medical insurance plan, but I only have 50 on my dental plan. I don't have to do a 5500 on my dental plan because it's just based on the number of participants on a plan. But you do have to file Form 5500 for each of the health and welfare benefit plans. Another thing they're looking for within this audit is they want evidence that you've completed various notices that we've talked about briefly before. Each of these are specifically requested inside of the information that they're asking for. So a very high-level summary of what we've talked about here in terms of what they look for. And again, this is about a four to 5 page document of information. They ask the same questions whether you're a fully funded or a self-funded plan, and regardless of the size. Even the small group that we worked with, they also had similar information. They asked the same information from them. But the first thing on there is these summary plan descriptions. Let's go into a little bit more detail about what that includes. So the summary plan description, you could individually go out and create separate summary plan descriptions. It's more than what you get from the insurance company, and what you get from the insurance company is included as part of that summary plan description. So you take like your insurance certificates, your summary of benefits and coverage, the information you get from the insurance company, and that makes up about 75% of what constitutes a summary plan description. But there's other things that are missing. And in fact, let me go down here. Here's some of the other things that are missing. They want all these details: plan sponsors, plan administrator, plan year, eligibility. They want things, what happens to the plan upon termination. And so there's this process here where so you could either create that all of that together, pull that information together for each plan separately, or you can use what's referred to as a summary plan description wrap document, or an SPD wrap. And what a wrap document does, a wrap document pulls in and creates one plan document and one summary plan description for all of the benefits wrapped into one. So medical, dental, life, disability, everything, so you'd have one overall document now and one overall plan document. And it pulls in the missing insurance company stuff, wraps into connecting to the component plan documents. With the wrap document, you don't reduplicate everything in the insurance company. You just reference to that, to the insurance company component plan documents, such as the insurance contract or the insurance certificates. Now, the information has to be distributed to all participants in the plan every 5 years if there's changes in the plan. Now, I've never known a plan that didn't have some kind of change within 5 years. So we just say plan on sending something out to everyone, an updated version every 5 years. Now, you need to have a current, accurate SPD or SPD wrap that you're giving to new participants on the plan as well. They need to receive that within 90 days of being on the plan. Now, herein lies the challenge. You know, this requirement's been around for a long time, but it's not been enforced until, you know, the recent years where we've come out with the Affordable Care Act. And now everything's getting a lot of attention on here now. You know, so they've got more auditors. I think part of the reason they're doing the audits is to make sure that everyone's complying with all the Affordable Care Act, as well as they want to make sure that they're getting the participation, and I believe it's even a revenue hunt. You know, if they can go out and assign fines, or if they make sure that everybody's participating, it gets more revenue to fund the overall Affordable Care Act. All right, well, so these SPD wraps can be delivered. In fact, the same would apply for notices as well. So if you're doing your notices with that big list we talked about a moment ago, or if you're doing the SPD wrap document, there's several ways this can be distributed. So you could mail it. You could mail it to, if you're doing that, you should mail it first class, you know, and then that could be mailed out. Now, it could be a pretty good-sized document. If you were sending out, let's say you did an SPD wrap approach, which is a very popular approach, by the way, because it simplifies the whole process of pulling this all together. So if you did an SPD wrap, your document there alone could be 30 to 35 pages, and then you would add to that like your insurance certificates or brochures or SBCs from each of the various benefit plans you offer. That could be a pretty good-sized document. So I'm not keen on these first two where I've got to go kill trees and make lots of copies for everyone. Nonetheless, those are rights and options of how you deliver that. You know, so you can deliver it that way as well. You could do a hand delivery, but you'd want to get some kind of receipt. The most popular ways are to do it electronically. And you could either take and upload your SPD wrap, your notices, and your other documents onto some sort of an intranet site or some sort of a delivery. Maybe you have a payroll system that allows a place where you can connect documents and such. But you can put that information there. You still have to separately notify each individual of their rights and what's there. And you do have to offer, if they want, a hard copy, you know, if they request that. You know, so that's something to keep in mind if you're doing it that way. You can also email it to participants in the plan. And this is a great way as well. So you could email out to participants. It has to be the regular work email that they use on a regular basis. So it doesn't work if you're a manufacturing plan and you have one computer that's back there that all 50 of your employees use. They don't view that that's sufficient. So if you had a situation like that, most people do have some sort of a personal email. So you can obtain written permission to send it to a personal email, but you do need to have that written permission, and I would save the information demonstrating that. And then when you send out the information, make sure that you're tracking, you know, what was sent and who it was sent to on what date. And to the extent possible, you know, if there's any way to verify that they received it, you know, that would be great. I know that's very difficult. Some individuals, some organizations, when they set them up on an intranet site, they may actually mail information to participants, mail it to their home, and then they track that they received that notice, and then they gave instructions on how to access the information on the internet, or that they would make available to them a computer or provide them with a hard copy upon request. I've got a question here, so I'm actually going to stop for a moment, and we'll go over to the question. Can't write, let's see. Okay, yes, so someone made a comment. They're trying to take a lot of notes from our discussion. I will make available to you copies of this presentation. I'll provide a PDF copies over to Mark, and then he can distribute them out to anyone who's participated today. So thank you for the comment. If you have any other comments or questions, please feel free to type them over, but don't worry about taking a lot of notes right now. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, and then we will make available to you the copy. So,
hey, Ken, let me just interject real quick. We're also recording this as well, so we'll have that available as well, the whole thing.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, if you have others at your office that you think may want to get up to speed on some of these things too, that recording will be sent around to you later on too. Okay, so if you're being prepared, if you're prepared for this audit, you will have distributed your SPDs or SPD wrap documents to all participants in the plan. You'll have a process in place where you're providing that information to all new hires as well, with the notices and the SPD wraps or SPDs. You will have completed all your required employee notices. We talked about that big list a moment ago. Some of them are included in the wrap document, but some of them also have to go out every year, like the Medicare Part D, for example. You'll have notified participants of any changes that's gone on using a summary of material modification, or I call the SMM. You will have filed your Form 5500s. You will have given out a summary annual report, which is referred to as a SAR, if applicable. Again, that's if you have 100 or more participants in a plan. And you want to make sure that you've established a good record-keeping system. Something where you're tracking the contributions, the benefit payments, participant information, reporting documents, as well as tracking how you've sent out and distributed the SPDs or the notices as well. So if you're doing those things, you'll be ready for these audits. In fact, one of the things we're hearing, they are assigning fines, but if you're, in fact, I think, yeah. So here's a list of the fines. So a fine could be as much as $110 per day per participant, up to a $500,000 penalty. We've heard that there's a daily fine limit of a maximum of $1,000 a day, but there could even be criminal impose civil and criminal penalties if somebody's trying to hide information or trying to falsifying information. But we are hearing that if you're doing, if you're putting forth, you're demonstrating a good effort, that they're not really nickel and diming you on every little single thing. So if you're missing a little something, then they're advising and guiding you on what to do. But if you're not making any attempts at all to do things like we're talking about here, then you will be fined. So there are fines taking place. All right, so I'm going to take a minute now and talk about some of the things that we could do to help you with this. So Mark sought us out to, because he wants to make sure that you are compliant and you're doing the right things. And we've created a service that includes some tools that will help you through all of this process very easily. And so I'm going to walk through and kind of demo some of this for you. And again, I'll answer any questions as we go through here today. So send me over your questions. The first thing we do with this is a service called Compliance Basics Plus. The first thing we do is once a month, we send out an email to you or anyone else at your office where we tell you what you need to know and do every month. And that covers all employment laws. So we give you key due date reminders. So just for example, back in January, we reminded everyone that February 1st, there was an OSHA posting requirement. It had to be up through from February through April 30th. So we notify you of those kinds of things throughout the year, anytime they occur throughout, as well as we give you, so here's an example of one. We give you key due dates and actions that's going on, changes that's occurred, and we give you federal compliance changes, as well as state-by-state changes. Now, most of you today are in Utah. You may have other employees who are in other states. Now, in this particular, when this article went out, Utah didn't have any updates or any changes. But the states that are underlined and highlighted here, those were states that had changes. So you could just click on that to then see what changed and what went on there. So again, this goes out just once a month. We don't send out an email blast every time there's a change. We know people don't like getting emails every single week. So this comes out steady once a month, tells you what's changed and keeps you informed on what you need to do. Okay, so the next thing that we assist with this, in fact, to go back here for just a moment, we also send out there's another article that we send out once a month. It's we call it our HR bulletin, but it takes one topic. It could be compliance, could be HR, or could be leadership oriented, and it takes one topic and goes into detail on a best practice. So we send that out to you as well once a month. So for example, we sent one out, I mentioned earlier that we sent out an article on the employer reporting requirements and how to set it up. What do you need to do now so you're ready for reporting in 2016? So that's an example. We've sent out some on how to set up a wellness plan. We've sent out some on how to hire the best people or how to set up a documentation system. So we even did one last year on how to pass an ERISA audit. So just giving you some ideas of those articles. The other thing, now we're moving into, there's some web-based solutions that we provide as part of this package. And I'm actually going to go into the web system and show it to you once I kind of give you a high-level view of what's included. So within the system, you'll recognize this list of notices. You go in and answer some simple questions about your company and some questions about your benefits. We ask the questions that drive which notice applies and anything that needs to be populated in the notice. So when you push a button that says Generate Employee Notice Document, it pulls in which notice applies, populates it, fills it out for you, and sends it to you in a ready-to-deliver format. We do this in an all-in-one notice format so that everything in this bracket, it goes in all-in-one notice, and this goes out to participants in the plan. Now, separately, there's a health exchange notice, and that changes anytime things change with your plans. And so you need to have a current, accurate notice that's going out to new hires. And so that one is separately. This notice goes to all employees, not just to participants in the plan, where this other goes to participants in the plan. And then I'll show you as well, we offer you a summary plan description wrap service that's inside the web system, and we offer you the ability to create summary material modifications. So I'll demonstrate those for you now. The only thing we don't help with on this whole list is the bottom one, the SBC, and that's the one you get from your insurance provider. I mentioned that I'll also show you details on how the wrap document service works. Both of these, the all-in-one notice and the SPD wrap service, are handled very similarly. You have access to go in and you log into the system, and you answer simple questions about your company, your benefits. So when you're creating the wrap document, you'll have details about each of the benefit plans that you offer, medical, dental, life, disability, and they'll be looking for policy numbers, the phone number, the address, the details about each of those plans, and the administrators and so on. And I'll show you the actual questions. Now, Mark has back-end access to the system. So if he's working with you and you have a question, or maybe you fill out as much as you can and there's something you need his help with, he too can log into the system, can see what you've done, and can help answer and help you manage your documents within the system as well. With that, let's go in. I'll just briefly mention before I go into the system. The system this is an option to offer a 125 premium-only plan document. And you probably know if you have a flexible spending account, a full 125 cafeteria plan, you don't need this. It's already covered in there. But if you don't have that, and you want your employees to pay for it, if they're sharing in any of the premiums and you want to pay for it on a pre-tax basis, you have to have a premium-only plan document, 125 premium-only plan document, sometimes referred to as a POP document. And just so you know, these documents, you may have an old one that if it's older than 2014, it's out of date. There were at least 2 modifications, amendments that needed to be in that document from last year, and there were a couple of changes the year before that as well. So some of you may have an old document you got for free from Aflac or somebody, Colonial or one of those folks, and it's probably out of date. So you might think about, maybe if you want to use us or someone else, that you get an up-to-date document. But with that, let me go out of here for a moment, and I'm actually going to go into the web system and show you the tools and what they look like. So our system is at hrserviceinc.com. So when you sign up for the service, you would create a username and password that you would then come in and log into the system with. So I'm going to go in as a test site right now so I can show you what that looks like. So if I log into the system, so you would enter your login and password. Once I go into the system, I immediately see I have a number of drop-downs and various options and tools that's available here for me to do everything I need to from a benefit compliance standpoint. So we talked about that notices, the all-in-one notice. I can go under employee notices, employee notice report, answer these simple questions about my business. Some of them are a little bit challenging, like you do have to indicate whether you have, well, when you indicate you have a prescription plan, you have to indicate whether it's a creditable prescription plan or not. And if you don't know that answer to that, you can get it from either your insurance company or Mark probably knows as well. But as you answer these various questions, and once it's complete, you can come down here and click this Generate Employee Notifications document. And if I click that right now, it would email me instantly. It would pull in which notice applied. So back to this list here of all these notices, it would pull in which one applied, populate it, and would send it to me, again, in that ready-to-deliver format. Now, I could do the same. I could come over here and generate my health exchange notice. Now, I don't know for you who created that, back before in 2013, but it's a little bit of a pain in the neck. This makes it really easy because you've provided the basic information that's needed in here to create it. You push this, the system fills it out for you and sends it to you, again, in a ready-to-deliver format. This one goes to all employees. This notice only goes to participants in the plan. Okay, so if I go back out of here for a moment, there's other things, tools that you have in here. There's other notices that may be like qualifying event type notices, like Fair Labor Standards Act. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Family Medical Leave Act. There's a number of forms for Family Medical Leave Act that's in here. There's forms for if you have a HIPAA breach. You may already have some option for your COBRA administration. Maybe you're outsourcing that. But if you're doing them on your own, there's template COBRA letters in here, qualifying event letters. So you've got a lot of information there at your fingertips. You also can go in here and see all of our past legal updates, either by the date, or you can go in here and find the updates by topic. So if you're looking for information on a certain topic, you can find it either in alphabetical order, or you can hit Control F and start typing a word. Like I typed in the word COBRA, and it takes me right to it that way as well. Now, there's a section here for HR forms, all new hire forms and documents. Most of you have this already. But it's nice to have a one-place stop where you can go in and get your latest I-9, W-4, job application, direct deposit form, whatever things you need. There's template, there's forms here that you can take and use. You also get access to all of our past best practice articles. So I mentioned earlier we did one recently on the employer reporting requirements. So we have all of the articles here in alphabetical order, or again you can hit Control F and search for any topic that you want information on. Once a year, we provide you a compliance calendar. So we tell you throughout the year what are the dates and what are the key actions that employers have. Now that, of course, then we remind you of that a month or two ahead of time when we get closer to those things with that monthly legal update and due date reminder service that comes as part of this as well. Now, moving on across, here's where you would complete the SPD wrap document. So if I click this drop-down button, now I can come in here. Anything I'd already filled out when I did my all-in-one notice would have already populated in here. But now I can come in here. I can answer these basic questions all in the web system here. So which benefit plans do I have? So if I have this one says I have a dental, a life, and an LTD. Whatever I've checked here, now if I go down below, that's what's populated here where I fill out information and details on. So there's my dental, life, and long-term disability plan. Now there's some, I won't hit every section in here, but I wanted to show you just a couple of neat features that I'm going to indicate that I have a medical plan as well. But within the system, you cover eligibility. So if full-time employees who work 30 hours or more and they start the first of the month after 60 days, that's an easy example there for you. Yours may be more complicated than that. You may have, it says the benefit eligibility start date the same for all benefit plans. That may be no. So in this example, I said dental insurance starts as of the date of hire. Or I could say here I've got vision starts after 180 days. Are there other benefit plans with different eligibility dates? I can cover all of that, and then it's pulled in and communicated in my SPD wrap document when it's complete. You may have groups where there are different eligibility requirements. We hope you don't get too many of those, because sooner or later you're going to have to pass discrimination testing as well. But for right now, you can still get by with some of these. But it says, does eligibility differ for any employee groups, such as executives, exempt, and so on? So if I say yes, then I could go in here and define the group. Maybe it's management. And anyone who works full-time, 30 hours, their benefits begin as of the date of hire. So I can cover those kinds of differences inside of this system with this tool. I also can come in here and it says, does your company have a defined measurement period? Now, most of you probably are aware of this, but you do need to look at defining a measurement period so that you determine eligibility for participation in benefits. And you can go through and choose either a 3-month, 6, 9, 12-month, or other. You can define some other variation of that. And then that's what, during that measurement period, that's where you look at now anyone that's obvious that they're full-time, you hire them, that you're planning on being full-time, you would just immediately follow your, whatever your waiting period is. If it's first of the month after 60 days, you would follow that. But if you have some positions that you thought they were part-time and you didn't think they were going to be eligible for benefits, those you would track and monitor over your defined measurement period. So that measurement period, then, you look at anyone who averages 30 hours or more, then they're eligible for benefits. And so that's how that works there. So if you define a measurement period, you could check that here in the system. You can also have a orientation period. From an eligibility standpoint, you could have a 1-month orientation period before the waiting period begins now. So if you have that, then you'd say yes, and that would be inserted inside the document. Okay, well, I won't cover every single field in here, but it also covers what happens upon, when benefits terminate. You provide information there. You cover your open enrollment or multiple open enrollment time periods if you have more than one throughout the year. You cover when is your plan year? Is it a calendar year, or is it a fiscal year? And you may have other plan years for other plans as well. So it says, do your plan years differ for any of your health and welfare benefit plans? So if you say yes, then you go in here and say, well, my dental plan goes from January 1st through December 31st or whatnot. If I want to take off something, I just hit remove. So once I go through and I fill out this information, and I get down here, I do the same for each of these benefit plans. So I put in things like the provider name, the policy number, address, and such. Do you offer an HSA that's associated with a high deductible? If yes, is there contributions? If no, then I don't have to put anything in. You'll notice on here it's not asking for rate information for any of these plans. That's a choice that you make if you want to include it inside of here. There's an option here that says, I prefer to skip showing rate contributions for all benefit plans, but I'll attach it to the wrap document once it arrives. So I've said yes in here, and that's why they're not appearing. If I say no, now when I go down here, the rate information appears for each of these, where I would enter in if an LTD, we only enter in just the percent paid by the employer. So again, that's an option, a choice that you make there. Once I've filled out this basic information on each of these, if I have questions throughout, I can just call and you can speak with our ERISA specialist, and she'll help guide you on how to answer the questions or how to fill things out. Or if you want, you can type her a note. If you type a note in here, when I come down here and generate SPD wrap document, and if I indicated that I wanted to go to me, then it would, if you put in a note, it won't go directly to you. It'll go to the specialist first. It'll delay your receiving it by several days, because then she goes through, reads your note, looks at your information, and then contacts you or helps you with it. Sometimes it's better just to give her a call and get it done. But if you leave this blank and you click this Generate SPD Wrap document, it'll be sent to you immediately. The system will create your documents. It'll send it to you with instructions on what to include with it and how to send it out. So the kinds of information you would include with it would be things such as the insurance certificates or brochures or summary of benefits and coverage or rates if you didn't include them in here already. And that's the kind of information you'd include with that. And then we talked briefly before about how to send that out. There's more detailed instructions that would be included with that when it's sent out to you. So let me know again if there's any questions. I'm going through a lot of this pretty quickly, but that's the SPD Wrap service in a summary format. Now I've mentioned as well you have a summary of material modification feature. Anytime you have a change in one of your benefit plans, you have to be able to communicate that change in terms of using a summary of material modification. Now there's other ways you can do this too. ERISA is going to accept if you've written out details and you've sent it around and you've communicated what the change was, and I think most of you are pretty good at doing that. But there is the ability that you could create an actual summary of material modification using this tool. So here you would come in, you'd say, let's say it's a medical insurance plan, and then I come down here, and I could either attach the information explaining the change, or I could explain the change myself. So if I'm changing my deductible, then I could type out, deductible, explaining what changed, move to $1,000, and write out, some sort of detail about the change. When does the change take place? And what type of change was it? Provisions that established a new benefit, changes that eliminated a benefit. And you indicate that, you put in the date, and then you could add another change if there was some other benefit that you wanted to change, and they would all be generated out in one overall document. And then once I click Generate Summary of Material Modification, let's see if I'll go ahead and do one here with you. So I need to put in a date in order for this to work. Okay. So now if I actually come down here and generate a notice, it actually processes and creates a notice, and then it pops up here for me to open up the notice, and it's delivered in a Word format. The same is true for when you run an all-in-one notice or you run the SPD Wrap notice, those are emailed out to you, but they come in a Word document format. So now you've got this an example of a notice of summary of material modification, and it connects back to your Wrap document as well, and then it saved that information there for you so if I went back to here, I have a SMM history. I can go in here and I can see all of the past summary of material modifications that I've ran, and I've got that information there at my fingertips. So okay. So the other thing I wanted to briefly mention is you have a HIPAA toolkit. So I talked earlier about the need to make sure that you are HIPAA compliant and that you're taking steps to secure the PHI information. I could go in here under Covered Entity, and I could understand more what applies to me and then the steps I need to take to comply. And then I could come back to the kit, and I can actually go in here, and we have all the forms and documents, templates, everything you need to create your HIPAA compliance program. Again, if all you do is offer medical insurance, you'll need to assign a privacy officer, have a HIPAA policy, have a business associate agreements, and then make sure you're securing and protecting your data like we had talked briefly before. Now, optionally, if you have a 125 premium only plan document, our system, you could click here and go in and download, generate your document, and just have that one you just keep on file so that if the IRS comes in, they're looking for that, demonstrating that you have a current, accurate document there. Our system also has a tool to do your discrimination testing to make sure you're not favoring the highly compensated. So that's all part of this as well. Now, if I come back to here, so what we've talked about here so far today, we talked about the need to be ERISA compliant. We've talked about some of the problems that you're faced with in keeping current being ready for the audits, getting out the notices, and being HIPAA compliant. We've talked about the Compliance Basics Plus service as one means, an idea to help you to do this easily. And this is done by first telling you what you need to know and do every month with email solutions, as well as a best practice article on how to do it. And then it gives you web tools to assist with your notices, your forms and documents, the HIPAA kit, and then separately, then you decide if you want to add on the wrap document service or the pop document service. So just to give you a feel for if this sounds like something that's of interest to you, I'll walk you through the cost and how you get set up on the service. And because you work with Mark, you actually get some special pricing, and I'll show you that as well. So we've talked about the Compliance Basics Plus SPD wrap service, this one right here. If I also wanted a pop document, then that would be the next option up. I could get everything going into our web service. You could purchase this online. Our normal rate would be $279 or $229 if you didn't have the pop document. And that's the cost per year. So you get everything we talked about here for the $279. Now, because you work with Mark, you get 5% off of everything. And we also, if you purchase it online, actually this discount here is only if you purchase it online. So if you want an invoice to set up for the service and invoice us, and you can just call us. We'll set you up on the service, and we'll invoice you for it. But the best way to do it is right online. Then you get the 5% off, and then I'm going to show you as well, you get another $10 off by doing it online, and I'll show you how that works. Here's a code right here I wanted to reference to you. It's a partner key. This is a special code that you would put in if you were signing up online. And that code is that's Mark's partner key code. When you enter that in, that is what connects him to you so that he could then go in and see your documents and help you with them. This is also what gives you your 5% off. So if I were you and I said, gee, Ken, this looks like something we think we ought to do, if you would go to our website at the hrserviceinc.com, and you'll see at the top up here there's a place that says Get Started Now. You click the Get Started Now, and then you select which service you want. So you could go in here and select the Compliance Basics Plus SPD and POP for the $279. So if I click that, or whichever one that you wanted, and then I could go in here and say Next. I create whatever username and password I want to log into the system with. And then I put in that partner key that I just mentioned, that's Mark's special partner key, and that's 1296. If you forget that, it'll be in the notes that we send around, or you can call Mark or myself, and either of us will have that code for you. But that code, again, is what gives you 5% off, and then that's what also connects Mark to you. Now, this other code that I'm going to give you is a special promotional code, and this will give you another $10 off as well for joining the seminar today and because you work with Mark. So this code is 10.000. So by putting in that code, that will take off another $10 off of your annual cost for at least this first year. Now, most folks continue the service ongoing, and that's a choice for you. You're not committed any longer than the 1 year that you paid for. But if you want to, most keep the service because we keep you informed every month what you need to know and do. We manage your documents inside the web tools. We remind you to run your all-in-one notice. We recommend you run this all-in-one notice here every year, right around the same time you do your open enrollment. We remind you 30 days before then to go in and do that. You also need to have a current, accurate SPD wrap document so that you can give it to all new hires and that you're ready if and when you're audited. So that's just a couple of things to think about. Again, from here, if I went into, then I entered my password, I would hit Next, and then it just asks you for basic company information, name, address, phone number, and then you pay with a credit card. So it's literally that simple. You'll see in here there are some other things if you're interested in, like if you need an employee handbook. We even offer some HR support packages if you need some additional help beyond what you provide for the company. So these are all things that I won't go into details on. There's more information about it at our website. But With that, I'd like to open it up to any questions. So if anyone has any questions at this point, and I'm going to put up my contact information here at the end. And then, and Mark, let me come back to you as well. Is there any, if you have any comments that you want to leave us with as well, I'll just open it up to anyone. So far, I'm not seeing any questions come over. Mark, how about you? Did you have anything else you had for us today?
Yeah, Ken. First of all, I want to appreciate your taking the time to do this webinar. I know, and for everybody who's on the call, it's, you know, this is very important information.
Mark, I don't know what happened. It sounded like we don't hear you any longer. I don't know if somehow you were disconnected, but so we're going. This will conclude our discussion here today. But as Mark was about to say, this is very critical that you are up to date on providing these documents and notices out to people. You will be audited and checked on this. You need to make sure you have summary plan descriptions or SPD wrap documents for all of the plans you offer. You need to make sure you're getting out your notices and that you're doing these things. This is an option if you want to work with us. We're happy to help you. You can do some of these things on your own as well. But if we can assist you, feel free to, you can sign up online as I had just demonstrated, or you can call me or email me with any other questions. Thank you very much, everyone. Oh, Mark, are you back with us?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. For some reason, I lost you guys. But basically, I just wanted to say real quick that when this all started coming down with Obamacare, we knew that there would be a lot of regulations and things that are associated with that, and even companies that don't offer Obamacare or any type of health insurance, they still have certain mandates that they have to abide by, and so it's critical, I think, that everybody get involved with this and just make it, you know, part of their normal routine, because I think it's from this point it's only just going to get more cumbersome, and we understand what the law is currently, and of course that could change down the road. But as it stands now, these are things that we have to do in order to make sure that we're in compliance and we don't have the fees and penalties that can come with that. So again, I appreciate everybody for being on and taking the time today, and Ken for you offering the service.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks, everyone, and please let us know of any questions or how we can help you. We look forward to helping you be compliant.